design neutrality. Our experts are geared up to discuss the importance of maintaining design neutrality by architects and builders to enable better integration of different kinds of lifts. The challenges in understanding and installing different kinds of lifts and escalators, and how maintaining design neutrality can help improve consumer experience. To moderate this session, I would once again like to invite Mr. Krishna Kumar Ravi, President and CEO, PAPL Corp. Thank you for joining us, sir. My first speaker for today is Ms. Uma Maheshwari, Head Design at Cornerstone. Can I request you to step on the stage? In her 2-decade career as a design manager within the realm of real estate development, she has demonstrated proficiency in orchestrating intricate design strategies. Her leadership approach emphasizes a meticulous integration of creative vision and practical functionality. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Maheshwari. My next speaker is architect Kavi Jain, owner of Nirman Consultants. With his passion for architecture and creative thought process, he inspires his team to produce path-breaking designs that have won awards and accolades both nationally and globally. He has laid the foundation of a responsible corporate culture in India with the trend of sustainable and environment-friendly office buildings. Thank you so much for joining us today. And my final speaker is Mr. V.S. Sriram, Associate Vice President, Development Manager, RMZ Corp. Thank you for joining us today, sir. He is heading the MEP vertical for commercial projects for the last 12 years. He has worked in various capacities in design and construction of various projects for the past 24 years. He is passionate in adopting sustainable practices and new technologies in the design engineering for his projects. Thank you, panelists, for joining us today in this discussion. And over to you, KK, sir.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the panel discussion. Thank you for joining. The topic for today's panel discussion is design neutrality, a very important parameter or attribute for any designer with respect to a project. Now, impartiality is a prerequisite to any independent design process. It necessitates that all design considerations are free from influences that may bias selection, findings, conclusions, recommendations, and reporting. A neutral design ensures fair play and advantage the builder. With this note, I would like to start this panel discussion. The questions here are for everybody. I would start with Mr. Sriram first. In your opinion, how neutral are your VHC designs? Let me ask each one of you, please give your opinion.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, thank you for this opportunity. So, basically, as a developer's representative, I will put my part because designer and the consultants are available over here. As a buyer, I put my thought on. See, the design neutral in terms of VHT, what we look is the drawings, that is the shaft sizes, the type of the elevators, what we are going to adopt for the building. It need to be suit for all the bidders. It should not be considered as a suitable for one person. The design is being considered. So more in terms of adapting to 3 to 4 people, we look for that. So that's the first consideration for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Uma?
Hi everyone. So I would say one of my most favorite topics that I've wanted to always speak about. What we've always looked at, I mean, in terms of design, if you look at any other genre in design, you will always have a lot of, you see a lot of bias, you see a lot of influences that have been carried forward, and which doesn't make it very inclusive. But I think VHT largely is trying to move towards a more a neutral approach, because accessibility has always been the key factor in elevators and horizontal systems as well. And even in terms of safety, there are certain parameters which have always been enforced. So I think it's somewhere midway, I can say. I think we have a long way to go. When we still kind of make observations where, like, I was talking to this earlier with the panelists, when you keenly observe, like you observe in an apartment complex, or like my own apartment, when I look at behavior, how people, I don't think everybody is treated the same way, or everybody feels the same way. For example, I was talking about this to Anita earlier. Whether it's a 2-year-old child, or it's an old person, or a pregnant woman, should feel the same when you enter a lift or an escalator. I think there is a little gap there, which probably can be addressed. Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Jain.
Yeah, I think when I talk of neutrality, as a dreamer or as an architect in a creative person, I would probably like to have the moon, and I would also like to have what a developer would say in terms of having a choice of vendors. Now, this is one unfortunate part which doesn't work. For example, even the shaft sizes that we are talking about are not constant in most of the in most of the players, which are just about 6 or 7 players that we have in the organized sector. The unorganized sector can actually fine-tune things to your requirement. So I would say that for any kind of a mass movement, that neutrality is important, and that can only come by regulation. I would strongly say that because we faced this problem earlier, in which we design for a particular brand, and for whatever reasons, if the brand has to change, there are lots of changes that need to be done in the structure to actually accommodate that. So design neutrality through a common code or through some kind of a regulation is necessary. And as Uma said, that safety it's not compromisable, not even negotiable.
Thank you very much. A related question, I think you've answered most of it, but still I would like to ask Mr. Sriram and Uma. How do you think being design neutral adds value to your project, your design? Mr. Sriram.
It's a continuation to my earlier response. So design neutral will help us in terms of avoiding the bias. For example, if I consider already one product line which is going to be adopted, the later date, if my contract does not meeting to the requirement, it will become a much more challenge for us, because by the time we would have gone for the structural drawing, production, modeling of those things with respect to the particular brand. So only it will add a lot of repercussions if I do a biased design. So in the neutral design neutral. So if one vendor is not suiting, it's not only to the price part, timeline also is most important. Somebody will say factory is overloaded, they will not be able to deliver to our requirement, we will be restricted to delay our schedule also. So that is the reason we should be in a position to accommodate at least 3 to 4 people in our design. That is our first point of it. And second thing, today we are designing the building. Later, 15 years down the line, the building will be intact. But as a mechanical component, we may get into the replacement, or the elevators might the out of design, or in that sense it will become old, so we want to have it replaced. Today in our earlier campuses, it is happening, 20-25 years campus and all. Today we are doing the retrofit of the elevator. There also we will get into that same make, same size kind of things. If I have the benefit of that today with multiple options over there, later I can even change the capacity of the elevator also. Need not to be stick into the existing capacity which was been designed 15 years earlier to accommodate that time population. Today the occupancy pattern also have changed and the office density also have changed. So it will be helpful not only for today, later down the line also. Thank you.
Suma.
Yeah, I think it's a key factor. Being neutral in a design process is, I think, the biggest challenge for any architect. Because I think largely as human beings we are biased in whatever way, which has come probably from generations of influence. So it's about breaking that. It's high time we break those barriers today. We try to make our design more inclusive. What is that we are all, what is that you really look at? Like, you know, you're designing a commercial building. What is that you want every single employee to feel? You want everybody to feel the same, right? So unless we are going to break those barriers, and when even when there is an intent, design intent that comes in, the key factor should be to make it very inclusive, make it very neutral. Your color palettes should also be largely neutral, and I think that makes the environment very friendly for employees. I think that's the kind of world we should move to. Unless there is a specific reason we are designing a building or a product for probably a heritage or a cultural building, there could be a different approach to it. But largely, anything that's a public space, anything that's uh, I mean, it's not just to human beings. I think it should be neutral to animals, to everybody. You know, in that sense, we don't want our pets to have an issue, or we don't want our aged population to not be comfortable in a space, right? So, I think that's what design neutrality does.
So I would probably, because there are many manufacturers sitting here, so I would, because I think most of it has already been covered by the two speakers here, but I would like to say that apart from the neutrality in terms of standardization, uh, some thought has to be given to very customized kind of requirements that architects have. Especially like today we are talking about just a vertical movement, but what about an angular movement? I'm not sure whether we have too many interested players, because especially in some kind of some of the systems that some of the new designs that we are doing a couple of public buildings where the need for a 45-degree kind of a movement is needed. Now, we do not have any established player in India as of today. So we are trying to get people from Europe and other places. But that apart, what's also important is in terms of technology, because right now we are only talking about drives or gears or whatever. But how is, are we really thinking about pneumatic? Are we thinking of other technologies? Okay, hydraulic can work in only smaller areas, but for higher lifts, is pneumatic even being considered? That's one question I would have to the manufacturers here.
My next question, I will start with Ms. Uma. Where do you think these biases creep in? Biases come in. Where does the bias happen in your design? Where do you think the bias, you get influenced?
See, well, people most of the times assume that it's only probably a gender bias, but that's not the only thing. There are different kinds of bias. Certain segments of people are probably neglected. So I think it's a high time that we, you know, kind of list down all the kind of biases that have existed, you know, which has made design sensitive only to a certain segment or certain people. I think we'll have to break all that and make it completely neutral. I think.
Thank you. Mr. Jain. Then I'll go to Mr. Sriram.
Well, biases are also by impressions most of the times, and I would say that the way this industry works, uh, I think the biases are more defined by the user, not just in terms of the look, feel, or the implementation, but how they're actually maintaining the whole thing. because I think maintenance in any kind of it's a machine and machine has to be maintained. So I would say that a basic public bias actually happens on how how the system is working seamlessly. That's number one. Secondly, the technology in terms of how it is being integrated to the whole complex. That and the ease of usage. For example, in the previous session, we had someone who talked about that a destination button does not work because not too many people are actually used to it. They won't enter the lift and still not know what to do. It's happened with me. So that's when I try to learn about it. So I would say that it's more of, I think there's got to be a lot of study on the user requirement. That's when we will be able to look at how to close down these biases and make sure that as a developer, he still has his 3 or 4 vendors to quote for. We are doing a couple of public projects and we can't just work on a single vendor.
Mr. Sriram.
I second Kavi Jain's things. Many of the time, bias happens with respect to the accommodation in the lobby. From the design perspective for them to meet the stone width and then the shaft width. So we will be forced certain design will accommodate to that uniformity. Then in that scenario, only 1 or 2 vendors can fit into that part because as you was saying, the shaft will not be the same for all the people. Some vendor will be giving a depth more, some will be asking for the width more. So this will determine the lobby width also. With the depth of the car, the lobby width is being determined. So that the stone what they are designing for that width, the line changes for that. So it will force as one part in the bias in the selection of that particular brand. Second things, as a mechanical engineer, living there, and a designer, lift machine room or MRL, which suits. So architects always want machine roomless. As a MEP engineer, we want always machine room. So these things will determine the biased approach actually.
Thank you. I think everybody is agreeing to a common point here. Now, who is the first person you would go to when you want some information regarding elevators? Starting with Uma.
Question, but I have no answer to this question. Yeah, no, see, most of the times I think there is a gap in that segment. There is a, I mean, from what we actually, that's what we were discussing even before the forum, that the input that we actually get from the vendors to what we actually put in at a concept stage, there is a lot of, it's very vague because there's no uniformity and there's no standard between different elevator providers. So I think we've always struggled. We've struggled with shaft sizes and stuff like that, which I think Sriram also touched upon. So unlike, I think that's also one of your things coming up. We should have a formal guidelines to this, like the NBC or something, where this is all regulated, which is standardized, and the vendors are driven by it. I think that will make a huge change to the industry. So it becomes more of a plug and play for us in terms of, if I'm clear with the capacity, I think I should have the size with me. That's
How about you, Mr. Jain?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would ask the project architect to define what's the number of users, number of floors, and what's the waiting time you are looking at. And based on that, I think that's the first calculation that we need to get. Now, unfortunately, when we are talking of, again, neutrality, you will probably end up having the top 6 manufacturers giving you 6 different options. Now, this is something which I thought that as a standard, if I have to take 1,000 people up 20 floors, it should be standardized. Unfortunately, it is not. And so I would like to, the first thing that I do is, because we do lots of high rises, so the first question that I do is, I lay down these norms, give it to various vendors, and they put in their feedback on that. So that's the first step that I do.
How about you, Mr. Sriram?
Obviously, first is our elevator consultant. So for each and every, whatever the design which we are developing, taking inputs from the consultant, we develop it. Next to that part, we will be speaking with a couple of vendors also to accommodate so that we are not fixing it with one vendor only. To ensure that part, we will make it also consultants and architects points only need to be complied by the lift vendor. Yes, there also there will be a impact will happen because they will say, okay, overall whatever you are designed as per your architect, you give me the shaft. I will play within the level of it for the overhead this one that you establish the shaft. So like that one or two adjustments we may end up in doing, but we principally follow our lift consultants design is adapted with our architectural things.
Thank you. So now I come to a very important question. So NBC is supposed to be the most neutral document. Why is it that nobody refers to NBC for their dimensions or parameters? Why is it so? Why do you go to somebody? Why do you need somebody to give you those dimensions? Why do you think you need somebody to give those dimensions?
Uh, I agree. I mean, NBC is quite comprehensive and has completely covered most of the topics. But compliance is not ensured by probably the local statutory bodies. I think once this becomes a norm, I think this gap will be streamlined for sure. For example, if you look at fire safety, that's something we all follow across the country because we think that's very critical, right? So that for that NBC is definitely we reckon NBC and all that. But then for the lift industry, there is nothing like that. I think it has to come in. It's high time.
So, well, we learned the hard way. We followed it once in our first vertical building and realized that once the and the clients actually did not close the lift vendor until it was built, until the shaft was already there. And that is when all the retrofitting started. So that is precisely why we don't refer to it anymore. And we start the way I talked about.
Over to you, Mr. Sriram.
We follow NBC to greater extent. We will try to adopt it as part of the net usable area for our calculation part. Considered how our area need to be calculated for the population for determining the elevators. That is one. Second thing, the shaft maximum we will try to adapt from the NBC sizing. And then the waiting time, average waiting time. But the only thing which we don't follow for NBC is the speed. Because we have a different requirement because nobody would like to hear anything less than 2 meters per second today, even for 10 floor building. So that is the reason speed is not been picked up from the NBC. Rest of the things we will try to make it maximum possible. But the one challenge when we are doing for the procurement part, certain safety compliance to many things, elevator manufacturers are not complying. When we are asking for the compliance part, they say it is being manufactured in Thailand, it is manufactured in China, so the code does not applies to me. So this is one challenge, whereas for example I handle chillers and other things also as part of my MVP. Today ECBC has set a guideline, you manufacture in China or wherever US and you want to sell in India, comply to my ECBC code. So similar implementation has to be there to follow the NBC.
Thank you. And just to add to your comment, even the elevators are getting standardized across the globe and being accommodated within the Indian parameters. Okay, so irrespective of where they are manufactured, most of it would be complied. Requirements maybe a matter of time, a few months, and things will change. Now, coming back to our question of what is design neutrality, who do you think is responsible to bring in the awareness among architects, designers on this design neutrality, rather providing them with neutral information?
Well, it's the body here. In the sense that you have this summit, which is the elevator world, and you combined quite a few players. So I think it's I'm sure that they would have some kind of an association which has to educate architects. But that apart, architects are a very difficult breed to really educate because each one of us has very very I would say very uh, different idea about how to go about things. So the lobby which is of the lift manufacturers has to do something about it. Uh, that apart, as I said, that in terms of uh, the basic difference currently what we are looking at is uh, the lift lobby would probably go to a developer first and then to the architects. This is sometimes because you see they know that where the money is coming from. So most of the times this is what we get. And then the developers tell us, okay, अच्छा हमने ये वाला freeze कर दिया अब आप इसके हिसाब से बनाओ. So this is one basic difference where currently there is a clash between the creativity of the architect and the developer, but this is a very, very practical pain point for architects.
How about you, Ms. Uma?
I think an input from end users is very important. Just like, see, COVID taught us a lot, right, in terms of behavioral patterns of people, and I think it's a key to design. I mean, over the years, people have been using, and you hear people crib most of the time about lack of facilities. I think that should be captured, and I think clients should take the initiative to pass that on to architects. Like he mentioned, unless it goes as an input, saying that this is what we faced in the previous project, and with a strong backup to it, I don't think it will be taken up, because an architect would design it, the way he wants, unless there's been a specific brief given. So I think it's some kind of survey that has to be done.
Thank you. Mr. Sriram.
Learning is an opportunity for everybody, it will be continuous. But in terms of understanding purpose, we consider architects and consultants have adequate knowledge already when it comes. So as a builder, as a developer, we have always continuously seek the expertise from the architects and the consultants. Second thing, we feel always the user demands are much beyond the requirement or the code what it is complying. So we say as a multi-tenant building, it is a 10% is the consideration for our population. If it is a full single tenant, 15%. He will give a new value to me, do 15%, 13% or 12% kind of things. So that almost 20% of the population is going to increase for me to do that one. And again, we need to meet the time of this one. When I have already completed a shaft, from where we can bring that possibility to accommodate it. So the headroom and the pits are designed, so I cannot change the speed also. To greater extent, little bit we can play with that. So user need to understand, because they are occupying the building, they will be demanding to which are not possible also. Built to suit, yes, obviously we can design anything for their demand. But in a constructed building or which is under construction building, we face this challenge.
Now coming to one very important question. What is that one technology or feature in the VHT system you would want to implement in your project that would set your project apart yet be neutral? I start with Sriram. That feature that doesn't create a bias, everybody can give, but it keeps you apart.
For last 3 to 4 years, we have been adopting DCS integration with the access control system. It helps us in what do you call speed per se. When the flap barrier, when they are moving, again the team need not go into the lobby and press for elevators, so that it reduces the people time in the lobby also. So directly they can move into the elevator. That is one thing which is been started by giving by all the people. Yes, there are certain developments need to happen because of the protocol. We have a challenge from one vendor communicating with the access control. There are a lot of challenges. We are a little bit overcoming. On couple of projects, we are completed also. But with the troubles, that is one part. Second thing, the system which we always want to have is that elevator management system. We love to have it. We invest more. but it shows what is been, where it is elevator. We don't have any control. Anything we want also, we need to depend on the supplier for it to give me the data. So which we want to avoid, and as a owner of the property, we have purchased the elevator, we want the rights for that utilization also. So if I have to stop one floor or I want to group, I need not depend on elevator service engineer to come and do that part. So my BMS team should be capable, like how I am controlling an AHU, similar way I want to control these elevators also. So these elevators should not stop for this floor, or it should be assigned for additional things. That control should be with us. So that is one thing I request this elevator manufacturers to consider as part of it. Because now one elevator to another elevator or interoperability also is there. Even I have an elevator management system, 10 campus is there. 2 buildings I am going to do with different people for the sake of the time. I cannot have the same elevator management system. Then I need to put multiple systems in the same campus. So these are the systems, technologies are available, but still it need to develop to the 100% potential of the developers.
How about you, Ms. Uma?
Yeah, in terms of something new that we can bring in, I would say maybe on the commercial front, I would say a seamless integration between horizontal and vertical systems. Most of the times in retail spaces, you see that. I mean, I shouldn't really have a problem, or in an airport, between taking an escalator and an elevator. It should be seamless and well connected so that it lets me move. And in residential project, I think there should be a lot more sensitivity. I think the sensors should definitely improve. I've seen people, like I was mentioning, small children, or there's an object, there's a cycle that's getting into the elevator that doesn't get sensed at times. All the time you see people getting stuck in elevators. That also has that set of fear in a lot of people. We are moving, we are evolving, but it's I think there is a gap there which can be definitely filled. Yeah.
So Jane.
You asked for that one thing, and that one thing would be time, the waiting time and travel time. That is where the intelligence and the traffic controls will actually help. And also when we talk of and integrating the complete security and the accessibility to various areas, once we have an integrated intelligent movement system, I'm sure that the time can be very, very precisely defined of whatever of the user. And I think as far as the user is concerned, these are the two very basic things that he's looking for. He's looking for what's my wait time and what's the time I need to reach my location. And the other things are frills. Means, okay, you can have, for example, very, very go to Burj Khalifa and you want to go to the top floor. You have a mass, you have a lift with about 30 odd people, and it goes up in a jiffy. But that apart, they've created an experience. They've created an AV experience inside the lift. So while you're going, you're actually having a kind of a 3D impact of the setup. So you hardly feel as if you're actually going to the 108th floor.
I want to add one thing here. Maybe glass elevators, capsule lifts. Don't you think you need standards there so that you can install any lift, any brand? That is one gray area where each elevator vendor has got his own dimensions for capsule lifts. So it becomes very difficult for you to make a choice. So I think that could be one of the critical. Now coming. Yes.
I'd rather add that that's where the players who are the unorganized sector helps you much better in these kinds of setups.
Right. Now my concluding question. I start with Mr. Sriram. Your final say on how you're going to ensure design neutrality.
Okay. Ensuring is the things, a couple of times we would have done the mistakes. So we learned from the mistakes and tried to avoid by neutralizing the design part. So there is one more concept we are trying to adopt in recent days. It's called the PCSA. PCSA is a pre-contract. It is a paid service to the contractor also. That means GC format which we are trying to use. So he will be working with multiple people to understand, collating the documents and establishing the facts that it suits to all. It's not only limited to elevators. It is called a constructability methodology also. So that what we are designing, it is able to be built by the civil contractor also, considering the mechanical designs. So this is one contract which it's been followed in US and UK, which we are trying to adapt and working with a couple of people. So like that we are trying to neutralize the designs.
Ms. Uma, your final say on that.
I think we'll have to formulate a clear set of guidelines, at least as a basis for accessible design, which becomes like a reckoner, like what we mentioned earlier. Like the NBC, we probably have to bring in thought process into it, and at least the basics are followed by most of the people, and then the rest could always, be changed according to the specific situation. I think that should be it. Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Jain.
You already spelled out that in a couple of months we are going to have that standardization coming in. So once that happens, I'm sure that things will be much better than what they are today. But I think the whole association of the lift manufacturers has to come together in a way to have a very healthy competition. And I think once the standardization happens, they will be forced to get into that healthy competition because the architects would also require it and the courts would also require it.
Thank you very much. Thank you all panelists. It was a wonderful session, very insightful. Thanks you once again for participating here. Any questions?
Good evening, speakers. I have two questions for Ms. Uma. First is, okay, is it audible now? So, what are the aspects that needs to be given priority while aiming for design neutrality, and to what extent functionality score over aesthetics? To what extent functionality scores over aesthetics?
Like I just mentioned, some of the parameters that we'll have to really set in terms of to bring in design neutrality is to completely set bias aside from every step to design would be to make it completely inclusive. So these are the set of parameters that we'll have to keep in mind when we're giving a brief to an architect or a designer. Like I was mentioning, color palettes, accessibility, safety. So these obviously take priority. Your aesthetics could follow, but it should be basically very functional because it's all about user experience. When we are talking about VHT, it's all about an user experience to reach from a particular place, and it should be completely seamless for them. I think that's what it is. Yeah, thanks.
Yes. Good afternoon, panel. My suggestion or this thing for these designers, especially when you are making the high-rise buildings, how do you take into consideration of the sway parameters and the carbon emission in respect of the VHT part of it? The environment when you are designing for that, how you are adapting to the environment situations, because we talk about future, about like in automobile industry we talk about emissions. So how you are planning or how you are thinking in your way on this environment, like how much energy consumption I can get it back, or how energy efficient is your elevators, how can it save my energy bill at the end user of it, as well as the particular segments of sway protection or in case of emergency, like 30, 40 floor people. Sir mentioned about Burj Khalifa or something, or Burj Al Arab. So they take into consideration of all these things, and then the structural parameters and the elevator shaft, and in case of sway or something like that, or earth packs when it happens. Do you have such potential things where you have the high-rise elevator? I'm not talking about the normal residential one, but the high-end elevators. How do you take this into the parameters?
Urban footprint and energy efficiency part, I will answer this question. So when it is going for a high rise, the first parameter like what is the elevator we are designing or taking it up, the kilowatt selection is the most important part. So when we compare, it is not only the design capacity and average waiting time, we evaluate the motor kilowatt, how much it is going to come in. Second part is what is the drive it is going to be. It's a normal BVFF drive or it is going to be a regenerative drive. If it is a regenerated drive, we prefer to have it actually. So that power which is getting generated, we want to utilize for the cabin lights and then reuse for the battery charging kind of application. So that we can reduce the impact from the energy perspective. And next part in our latest developments of all properties which are in Bangalore, all are 100% by renewable power, which we are doing through the open access part. And then for the projects in Hyderabad also, which is under construction completion, we are agreeing, we are doing agreement with Discom only for renewable power. So like that we are reducing the impact on the energy part and the carbon footprint.
I'd like to add to that in terms of energy. You see, the lift manufacturers have themselves done a lot already with the regenerative technologies. Anyway, that's the active part which the machine is doing. But then there are these passive parts where the actual movement gets minimized, and that happens through intelligence. When you build in the passenger movement in your IBMS and you control which all lifts are operating. So that's the passive way in which you can actually reduce consumption. And now that's something that we've done a very interesting analog in one of our buildings, which is 28 stories in the NCR of Delhi, and where we made sure that during the non-peak times, because we analyzed the passenger movement, in the non-peak times, some of the lifts don't function. So that saves you a lot of energy, and the waiting time and the travel time is still the same.
And to add to your question of sway, building sway, see, most of the tall buildings are subject to wind tunnel testing. So they ensure the building designers comply with the minimum requirements of building sway and all those things. So based on that, the building is designed. So as the buildings become taller, the elevator companies also take into account the sway when they are designing their products. So there is a tolerance both as per the building design as well as the elevator design, so which takes care of the building sway. Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Vinayak Shishadri and I'm from the US, from Tiger Petrol. My question is, the Prime Minister has brought a concept of Make in India concept for most of the technical bodies to manufacture the product in India. However, you see we are still importing products from Taiwan, China, which are cheaper, and on the same time when you're doing a Make in India concept, we are seeing that the manufacturing cost of these components to make in India are more expensive as compared to the imported products which are coming in. So how are we going to tackle this problem with the pressure from the government of Make in India concept? Thank you.
That's a very nice question. I think the elevator is just one part of it. This applies to maybe most of the materials that are being used in the construction industry. You want to answer that, Mr. Sriram? How about you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think it's great the way Make in India is happening, and I feel that the current generation of the entrepreneurs that we are having, they are very, very sensitive about environment, and they know exactly that if they don't make it cost effective, India is a cost market. So they know exactly how to save the environment and how to save money. For example, I'll just take an off route for explaining this. There's a company in Jalandhar which has come up with waterless washing machines, and that's a make in India. Now that's where when you have with a glass of water, you can do your daily 6 kgs of washing. Now that's a technology which is made in India, designed in India, and it is cost effective. So in the same way, there will be, for example, the drives. I think if you look at the way the graph of the energy consumption of the drives has come down, it used to be coming down a little like this, but now it's gone exponentially down. So in the same way, I would feel that the enterprise of the younger startups is actually making India a very, very competitive industry in total. And we are not only restricting ourselves to India, we are actually looking at exporting out. So, China, for whatever reasons, that's my personal assessment. China is, in terms of manufacturing, till about 5 years back, they were about 30 years ahead. But now I think the gap has closed down to about 15 in those terms. And maybe in the next 5 to 7 years, this gap will totally close down, and people would prefer to have a product from India than from China, primarily because in the European countries, it is getting established that a Chinese product is, fortunately for India, an inferior product than an Indian product. And it's because we've done a couple of plants in Europe, and we realized that their viewpoint about India is very gung-ho and quite positive. That's my assessment of the situation.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm asking one more question. If you look at the Indian environment of manufacturing and design, we have a lot of software developers who are working in various platforms and designing concept and coding and all. And it's very easy for them to get into colleges also, which are into MCA, IT and all. But one of the biggest challenge which the Indian market is facing is the hardware market. You get very rarely hardware architects which are designing chip system and nanoprocessor. So this is one of the challenge which I'm facing in India. And anyone who's having 2 years or 3 years of experience, the foreign MNCs, they poach into them and take them and offer them jobs in Germany. So we are losing a lot of skilled people in India who are actually into hardware designing, especially from Indian Institute of Science and IIT. When they have their campus interviews, they don't come into Indian market to design Indian chip. So how can we solve this problem and also have a easy method for people to get into mechanical and automotive designing colleges in India?
Well, this is being addressed by IITs. I am from Roorkee, so all IITs, I would say not all, but most IITs now have incubation centers, and quite a few of the products that have come from these IITs and the incubation centers are the ones that you are talking about. So, as an institution, yes, the basic impression about IITs being just an educational kind of an institute is also changing to a commercial setup. For example, when I was studying at Roorkee, there's an organization called CBR, Central Building Research Institute. And at that point of time, there were hardly any products of CBRI which were actually commercially available in the market, because the market was not adapting to them. But now, after the integration of University of Roorkee into IIT and CBRI together, every year you end up getting at least a dozen or 2 dozen kind of products coming into commercial acceptance. So that's what is happening in IITs.
I would like to add, these incubation centers are being done by every IIT. They give the complete scope for the students to develop after their completion of the graduation. They are having the experience centers over here for continuing their R&Ds. So it is a lot of what do you call thoughts are being given by the government and IITs for developing the product. And being an IIT developed product, I bought the Ather scooter for the first thing. Still, I am very proud of it actually as an electric vehicle, and then developed by the IIT teams.
Also like to add to this, I think, I mean, you did ask a question which was at a very a broad level, you know, in that sense. But I think it should start at grassroots level. I think at home, at every single house, people have to start telling their children not to go outside and study in India and stay in India, work here. I think that has to be enforced and or at least encouraged, and there should be policy changes which will want kids to stay back. You know, I think that's where it first starts.
I'd like to just end up with a small anecdote. In fact, last year I sent my recruitment team to Roorkee to pick up architects. Unfortunately, when you're talking of software, there's a batch of 27. 26 of them were already gobbled up by Infosys and the TCSs and their architects. And so the IT world is gobbling people from IITs and not leaving even architects for us to absorb.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us today. It was a wonderful session. And thanks for the participants. They've been asking very nice questions today.
That was one explosive session full of phenomenal ideas. Thank you so much, speakers and KK Sir, for moderating this riveting conversation. I would like to request the panelists to step forward so that we can felicitate you. And I request Shinoz, the project manager for Smart Lift and Mobility exhibition, to step on the stage and felicitate the speakers.
Just wanna be alone. The same old thing keeps me around. If you wanna come around, baby, it's cool. And if you wanna fuck around, baby, I do. Just wanna be alone with you. With you. With you. With you, just wanna be alone. What was your name again? I've seen so many of them come. Want me just play pretend? All your girls, they just wanna have fun. But it's the same old thing that we all see. Same old thing that keeps me keen. But I just wanna be alone. Just wanna be alone. Same old thing keeps me around. If you wanna come around, baby, it's cool. And if you wanna fuck around.
Thank you to all the panelists, KK Sir and Shinoz. I would request the speakers to give us a video bite on their way out. Thank you.